Welcome to Empowered Voices.
Welcome. Hi, Dr. Farzad.
Hey, Amani. The journey from recovery to resiliency. This is our first official episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Woo.
Okay, so
This is awesome.
Episode 1.
Yes.
The Untold Journey Inside the World of Pregnancy and Substance Use.
I know, right?
Right? Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so what we're hoping in this first episode to kind of explore this hidden world of substance use during pregnancy, hearing some stories of courage and strength while facing, I guess, the complexity and obstacles that those that are pregnant and using substances can face.
Yes, and those stigmas we've been talking about.
Yeah. So I guess my hope for viewers and listeners is that we'll gain maybe some insights into like personal challenges, systemic challenges, all sorts of challenges.
Yes.
that those individuals can face, and then hopefully maybe what are some positives of that, in that what kind of role does something like supportive care help with in navigating those challenges during that time, which we like to say in the world of medicine is a really critical time for both the pregnant individual and the developing baby.
Yes, you are right. You are so right.
Moni, do you want to introduce
Yes.
our guest?
So I am super excited to introduce this lovely queen that I have sitting here right in front of me. Her name is Sam, and she started out as a client of Empowered, and she is just the true epitome of resiliency. I promise you, this woman has an amazing story. I can't wait to hear it. And Sam, can you please tell us a little? Oh, and actually, Sam currently works for Empowered as a peer support. She is out there in the community, truly helping women in their journey of navigating these things that we talk about, being pregnant and either working in recovery or still trying to get to that point where they're I guess the beginning phases of recovery.
Absolutely.
Yes. So,
absolutely.
Sam, can you please just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Welcome, Sam. Welcome,
yes,
Sam.
welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Don't be nervous, Queen.
Yeah. Look, I'm nervous as all heck. Okay,
I am too.
I'm nervous as all heck. I will try to not lift my arms, because if I do, there's probably going to be a lot of
I understand. I always say my leg
under
knee.
my shirt. Okay,
Yes.
so just, Sam, just a little bit about yourself. Amani sort of laid in the foundation for that intro, but kind of give us the one-liner and some information that you'd like to share, or even delve into sort of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, like Amani said, my name is Sam. I am a peer recovery support specialist over at Empowered. I am also a mother. I used to be a client. I am also in recovery. In June, I will have 3 years clean.
You go, Queen. That's a blessing.
This is kind of my first time doing this whole recovery thing. Also, first time being an actual mother. So, I'm just kind of trying to get through it, trying to learn with everybody else. I guess.
Yeah, thank you. One, look, I told you how nervous I am, right? So I can't imagine. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
It takes a lot of strength to be able to muster up the oomph in order to sit in front of an audience like this.
And she's a strong woman. We got the right one for us.
No, exactly. So we'll definitely get to, I just wanted to, for our viewers and listeners, maybe explain what a peer recovery support specialist is.
Please.
For those that don't know. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to give a quick one-liner and then we can sort of dive into the meat and potatoes?
I'll just say what I do. So a peer recovery support specialist to me is just meeting our clients that are in recovery or are hoping to be in recovery where they're at. Basically whatever they need, or whatever kind of support they need. If they feel like they want it from me, I will be there for them. So.
Yeah, perfect. And all I would add to that is that the key point in being able to be a peer recovery support specialist is that individual also needs to be in recovery themselves. Yes. And so we call that lived experience.
Love it.
Lived experience. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's dive in.
All right.
The hidden struggle. Sam, kick us off. What are some of those realities and stigmas surrounding substance use in pregnancy?
So the stigmas for sure.
We laugh about this,
we
guys.
do.
Like,
no,
this is no laughing matter.
It's not.
But you have to laugh to keep from crying sometimes.
Totally. Okay, so that's what we're going to take for the duration of this podcast and whatever we're calling this, right? Empowered Voices. Please don't see our laughing as joking about substance use, joking about mental health, joking about the struggles that all you individuals need to face, or all individuals need to face.
Yes.
It is literally, I love it, Amani. We're laughing because
we're keeping from crying.
We're keeping from crying. Okay, and with that, thank you, Sam. Continue.
That may be them, but mine is nervous laughter. So the stigmas, a lot of it for me was, how could you? You're a mother.
Yes.
And not only that shame that people put on people that aren't even pregnant while using, it's like 10 times multiplied with people that are pregnant and using. And people don't understand how you can't just put it down. Like you're pregnant now, you have to change your life now, you have to change everything now. But people don't understand, society doesn't understand that it's not that easy.
It's not.
And they, instead of giving them the support or maybe like the hand holding that the pregnant individuals may need, they kind of just turn their backs on them.
Yes.
Like, oh, so you're not going to put it down. Okay, then
you don't
bye.
need help.
Yeah, goodbye.
You don't want help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found that a lot in my journey as well. When it's already hard enough, like you said, without you carrying a baby, to just start your road to recovery, and when you are pregnant, you have all these extra hormones raging inside of you that you're trying to process. So you're self-medicating yourself to kind of deal with that. So it actually is 10 times harder I feel like it was 10 times harder to quit. I mean, the reality in your brain is you're pregnant. Stop. This developing child, like you said, does not need to be ingesting all these things. But it's so much easier said than done. And like you said, the stigma's out there getting help. Oh, well, she's pregnant. We're going to just stop because she doesn't want the help. Mm-hmm. She obviously doesn't need. We're just going to save our resources for somebody who actually wants and needs it. When I feel like if you put your foot in that door, obviously you made that step to want and need that help.
Just to be turned away.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And Amani, we talked about this a little bit during our intro episode. I'm going to try to sort of represent the healthcare establishment, right? And what I find super ironic is you all talked about the stigma, right, associated with not just only substance use, but it being tenfold during pregnancy.
Yes.
What I find so ironic is that if we look at the lifespan of, let's say, vulnerability, impact, morbidity and mortality, right, being ill and having things happen, or mortality, which is dying.
Yes.
Pregnancy and that first year postpartum is immensely important and immensely critical. And if I, as a healthcare clinician, could choose only one time to intervene and provide help to an individual, that would be the time to do it. But what do we find in our community is that is exactly the time when most individuals suffer sort of termination or getting their care discontinued. So we are at completely the polar opposite of what is a standard best practice and what is actually happening. In the field of medicine, I oftentimes do not see a larger separation of when care should be delivered and how it's being delivered. Basically, it's not being delivered.
Yes.
And that is a lot due to stigma, the S word, right? So
yes.
Stigma. Yeah.
That's what we'll call it, the S
Yeah,
word.
the S word. Yeah, the S word. Okay, how about this? How about a little bit about what leads to substance use?
I think for everybody, it's different.
Yes.
For me, I could say it was probably how I was raised and maybe a little bit of the trauma that I went through. And then also a little bit of my own decision to use. You know, like I saw other people doing it and I wanted to do it. I wanted to be in that crowd. I wanted to be cool. I wanted, I wanted friends. But really I didn't even know what I wanted. And then, and then when it came down to it, it was 20 years later and it was a little bit too late. You know what I mean? It was too late to really look at what I had done. I mean, not too late, but
we get what you mean.
20,
yes.
You start and then 20 years flies by and it's like, oh my God, what?
Yes.
So I feel like for each individual person, it is a little bit different. But for me, it was probably trauma.
Sure.
And I think that's for a lot of people as well.
Yes.
Whether they want to admit it or not.
No, you're 1,000% correct. Mine was when I became an adult, dealing with domestic violence and the trauma from that. And it just, meth made me feel good at that time. It was something that kind of numbed the pain. And so that was my thing that I ended up doing to kind of help mask that trauma that I was going through. Everything was okay because that increased dopamine. You're just like, okay, I can get through it. This is going to be okay. Forget it, kind of thing. And that was my intro that led into my drug use. There's a question I heard, what leads to drug use during pregnancy? And I don't ever think that nobody really just becomes pregnant and then
starts using.
Yes.
I think the using starts before the pregnancy.
Exactly. It
right.
does.
No,
it's usually.
totally. I think you hit the nail on the head on that one, right? From an evidentiary standpoint, you'll hear me sort of, I don't want to use the term nerd out, but how about
No, I love it,
explain some of the science, right?
Yes.
Or what we know based on evidence and research studies is we like to think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50%. So half of the predisposition is just based off of your genes, your DNA, what you were born with.
Yes.
And then you throw in all these other things, Sam, that you talked about, right? Like environmental, right? Exposures.
Yes.
We have the substance itself, right? Plays a big role. For example, certain substances are more addictive than others. And that's all sort of like what's happening on the inside. Trauma, we could have episodes about trauma, right? Trauma is massive. So absolutely. But yeah, what I think is a good take-home point is it's not usually just one thing.
No.
It's not usually just
It's
one thing.
not.
It's a confluence of factors. Oftentimes, I like to describe this to patients as like you were dealt a hand, right? You were dealt a certain set of cards. Let's call that the genes, right? Like
Yes.
what you were born with. And then in life, how do you play those cards? What further cards get dealt to you? All those kinds of things.
Yes.
Then play. But one side note, right? Is because oftentimes it can be a misconception, Sam, that I think leads to further stigma, which is, and we'll talk about opioids, right? Because we're dealing with an opioid epidemic,
Yes.
right? Record number of people are
No,
dying every
it
year.
is.
We can get into those stats, but about 200 people every day die from overdose. The single largest cause of death for reproductive age individuals, 15 to 44-year-olds, 15 to 45-year-olds, by far and away is overdose.
Yes, it
not
is.
Cancer, it's not diabetes, it's not heart attacks, it's
The
overdose.
sad yeah.
Right. Okay. But a little bit of a stat, I'll get back to that stigma piece, is a lot of folks think that people kind of did it themselves. Right. I am now using
Yes.
heroin. It was my fault. I went and I blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But we actually find that about 80%, 80+% of the folks right now using heroin actually started their opioid use via a normal prescription.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So just some food for thought. I don't
It
want to go
is.
into that any further, but just food for thought, right? It was they took their medication as prescribed from a healthcare professional. So think about that the next time you're sort of trying to or you're looking to judge someone who's struggling with a substance use disorder or an addiction.
Yes.
That I'm saying we, collective healthcare, might have done it to them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now we're talking about pregnancy and substance use. Sam, how do you think that sort of affects, how did it affect you while you were pregnant? How did it affect you? How do you feel like maybe, was there concerns that you had for your developing child, or even afterward, did it affect the household?
I'll use my first kid as an example. I was really young when I had him. And it really didn't even seem real until he was out and on my chest. I used that entire pregnancy. And I had planned, like, oh, I'm gonna quit a month before I have him. Oh, I'm gonna stop, 2 weeks before I have him. And then it was down to 1 week. But I couldn't stop. And I remember being really, really scared when I went to the hospital. I'll just say this first. The entire pregnancy before that, like I said, it wasn't even like it was real. I wasn't showing. I didn't really feel him kick very much. It was kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Right,
like
yes.
I knew that I was pregnant, but it just didn't seem real. And then, like I said, that last month, and I remember going to the hospital and being really excited, but also really scared and not really sure how I was going to, like, I don't want to say get away with it, but say it out loud, what was happening.
Yes.
But it turned out I didn't really have to. I didn't have to come to terms with what I had done my entire pregnancy. Something had happened. I'm not even really sure what. But I was able to go home with him, which I was absolutely shocked. So I kind of just swept it underneath the rug.
Sure.
Yes.
After, things went way downhill. We couldn't sustain any kind of normal living. We couldn't hold jobs. I want to say about 8 months after I had him, I went to jail for theft, to try to keep up with rent and paying for everything and
Your everyday living.
And it ruined everything. It absolutely ruined everything. And it started, nobody noticed. I'm not blaming anybody either. I'm not, because really I was trying to get away with it. I was. But if it would have been caught here,
Yes.
In the pregnancy, I don't think that,
Sure.
It would
and
have
I feel like
manifested.
that's a lot of what we do at Empowered is catching it in the pregnancy so it doesn't have to end up here. I've done that. I'm shaking right now. I'm sorry, guys. I've done that with 3 of my pregnancies.
Yes.
And I don't wish that on anybody. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I try not to think about it, but it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing,
Yeah,
Sam.
thanks so
Sorry,
much.
guys.
Thank you. No,
No,
because
no.
it's a serious matter, and it's
No,
just
yeah.
it brings up so many feelings.
It
and
really
everything.
does. And I try not to think about it.
And yeah, I get it because I know throughout my pregnancy, especially I was in my head just smiling because I know exactly what you meant when you were saying that we in your pregnancy you're like, okay, I'm gonna stop using this. I'm gonna stop using them.
Yeah, I'm only going to do it for a month.
Yeah, no,
good.
It's funny. Even when I started using, I knew that I shouldn't have been using, and whoop-de-whoop, womp-de-womp. It was running into the wrong person, wrong time, with the wrong feelings. And so I said I was going to use just for a month, only a month. Then the next month, the end of the month came, and I was like, okay, just this last month. Every month this is the last month.
That month goes by so fast,
Girl.
though.
I mean, next thing you know, this month then turned into 2-4 years down the line. So
Yeah.
I get it when you say 20 years and went by, and it's like, wow. This is where we're at. And it's so amazing on where you are now. It's just so great that you're helping other women so that they are able to catch things in the beginning and actually start building skills and maybe what we would call a tool belt to help put things, all these little skill sets and supports and different things and start building that now so they actually can be resilient.
Yeah. So, how does it affect the individual? How does it affect the baby? How does it affect the household? I'll use the extremes. We've seen cases where it ends up not. There are really good outcomes for everyone involved, all the way to cases where every imaginable disaster, worst case scenario you could fathom happens.
Yeah.
Including death of both the individual and the death of the baby and the death of family members in the household because of the trauma and the grief and the stress.
Yes.
Look, that's really morbid. Okay, I'm going to focus more on this.
Let's go to a
All right, but before we sort of go into what I'm going to call the next section, which is breaking the silence, before I go into that, I want to say that the majority of cases that we see where folks engage in treatment are often very successful.
Yes.
And we have really good outcomes for everyone involved.
That is so true.
Cool?
I love it.
All right. Enough of the, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about breaking the silence. Sam, tell us about having open conversations. I'll mention a little bit about support systems, but we have an upcoming episode where we dive a little bit into... Oh, episode 3, is that what it is? Okay, where we talk a little bit more, or we dive into more about support systems. But yeah, let's talk about open conversations, things like overcoming some of those societal judgment stigmas. What did you experience? How did you do that?
So I feel like the first conversation that you have to have, open conversation that you have to have, is with yourself.
That is so true. It is so true, though.
I like it.
I had dug such a deep hole for myself that I really didn't think that I would be able to climb out of it. But I really had to like come face to face with myself and be like, with my last pregnancy with my daughter that I have now, I had to ask myself, like, could I go through that again? Could I go through another pregnancy while using, and lose her too? Could I do that? And I didn't think that I could. So, I had to get real with myself. And then, it was my first time asking for help. From anybody, from any organization, for saving myself, and to be open and honest with yourself and with everybody that's in your journey of recovery, I think is your best bet, because if you're still trying to like beat around the bush with people or lie to people to serve your needs, I don't think it really helps you.
It's not really going to help in your journey of recovery.
Absolutely
Transparency, I found, is key. You have to get to that point where you're just 100% honest.
Yeah.
And you're honest with sharing your journey. And yeah.
I never thought that I would be where I'm at today, but I think open conversations and honesty with everybody that's in my life has really helped.
Yes.
Yeah. How about for you, Amani?
I was laughing because when Sam was saying about being honest, I remember the early part of my recovery, it was just the lies. Are you clean? Yes, I'm clean. Knowing that you're not, that you're on cloud 13, and you just... Being honest, I know that was when I knew I was ready to actually change, when I can actually, and Empowered gave me that, I have to say. That was the first place that I felt I can really be honest in my journey in recovery, and going to Empowered and actually being able to share, hey, I used today. When was the last day? Today. And then being able
this
to
morning.
Literally, and being able to say, hey, so you used, what were you thinking when you used today, or what was going on? Being able to identify those triggers, to identify them and catch them early, so that later on, if I did ever have those triggers, I could find other routes to kind of distract myself, or just not put myself in that position. I know that early in my recovery, being alone, bored, was one of my times, was a trigger for me. So being at home, I would have to keep myself busy, finding work Just things like that truly helped me, because it's not just one way. It's not just this works for me, this is going to work for you, this is going to work for you. It's so many different aspects. And being real with yourself, having that transparency is number one, because you really can't get through your recovery journey making up lies. I mean,
you could try.
You
could
can.
try.
I mean, you can. My grandpa used to say, you tell one lie, you got to tell two. Then it just multiplies and you forget what you're lying about.
Better start writing them down because you're not going to remember.
Yeah, and that kind of, just having that transparency, it also just allows you, when you're honest with yourself, then you're able to be honest in the things like, well, what do I truly need in a support? Who is truly my support?
Mm-hmm.
When you're lying to yourself, you're thinking friends that really aren't your support.
Significant others, I mean, you name it.
Yeah,
You name
and
it.
you know what's so crazy is a lot of what I see are some people who are in recovery. They do have to shake their significant other because there's not right. That's not the right person for them in their journey to recovery. Some people, you have to let go of. Like they say, people, places, and things you have to let go of so that you can actually fly and soar.
Yeah, and along those lines, from the clinical side of things, a little bit about appropriate screening, which involves asking questions.
Yes.
And not just checking someone's urine.
Yeah, that is so
that's
true.
That's actually not recommended. The recommendation is to ask questions. One of the questions that we ask for screening during pregnancy is, does your partner use alcohol or drugs? Because of exactly what you just said, right?
Yes.
If your partner does, it puts you at a higher level of risk for you yourself, okay? More along the clinical side of things, I think as clinicians, maybe boiling it down to like two things, I guess, if I could ask for, and we see that it can go a long way in forming relationships, building rapport with our patients, is empathy.
Yes.
Okay, empathy.
Yes.
And empathy, basically, long story short, is imagine yourself in their shoes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not trying to be sympathetic. I'm not trying to say I'm sorry. All those kinds of things. It's being, that sucks. That sucks. That must be awful, right? Those kinds of things. And then that can help, I hope that can decrease some of that bias, that prejudice that we have as clinicians, and that stigma.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing you as someone that's lesser or that's broken or needs fixing, right? This is just something that you're going through. How do we get there?
Yep, you're a person going through something.
Yeah, and another thing I guess I would say is having an effective communication style.
Yes.
What I like to call a guiding style versus directing.
I like that.
So I'll give you an example. Directing is, I'm trying to tell you to stop smoking, okay? You need to stop smoking because during pregnancy, it's going to lead to prematurity, low birth weights, higher incidence of preeclampsia. So you're going to stop smoking?
I'm going to be honest, I zoned out.
Exactly. So we find that to be extremely ineffective.
Yes.
Let's go over to, now let's contrast that with a guiding style, right? Guiding style is, hey, Amani, tell me what you think about your smoking. Tell me, what are some of the goods? What are some of the positives? Maybe what are some of the not so goods, the not so positives? What do you think about smoking during pregnancy? And then leading the conversation from there. I'm guiding you, right? I'm guiding the patient towards whatever they feel might be better for them.
Their own way of thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. And it keeps them engaged and actually start working through what they're going through.
Yeah, because we know that that's bad for you. It's not like we don't know.
I don't need to tell you.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
need
We
to
know it
tell
causes numerous.
Numerous, right? Now. Make sure all the cards are out on the table. I'm sort of required to tell you, like in my professional judgment, based off of experience, based off of the science, based off the evidence, here's what's best. But none of those sort of other things that come with and instead let you sort of get to that, right?
Yes.
How can I help you? All right. So I mentioned a little bit some of the clinical side. From the patient perspective, what I really like is being an advocate for yourself.
I love that.
And why? Why do we have to advocate? Aren't you there as a healthcare system to help me? Yeah. But right now, I would say when it comes to mental health, the umbrella, which includes substance use, I would say we're still not at a place where we're doing the best.
Yeah, I would
We
have to
could
agree.
probably still improve, and there's room for improvement. So
Always.
this might not be your experience, but I say, it's one of those very cliche sayings, right? Plan for the worst, hope for the best. So planning for the worst is imagine when you go in for your visit. Imagine when you go to the hospital. Imagine this and imagine when you go there and that you're going to be told all these negative things. You use substances, how dare you?
Yes.
Using very stigmatizing, marginalizing, words, things like, oh, you're a junkie, you're an addict, you're this, you're
Degrading,
that.
yes.
Degrading. You're never going to, I can't believe, very fear-based. CPS, Child Protective Service, is going to get involved. They're going to take your baby because you're awful. We're going to get the criminal justice system involved, all these kinds of things, right? So I hope you all, viewers, listeners, extended family, anyone who might be listening or impacted by something like this podcast, right, or this program, you might experience that. And if you do, but also even if you don't, because there could also be neutral responses, but you're not getting the best standard of care
and
or
that's
the best.
true too.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Advocate for yourself. That means, hey, I know this is going to maybe shock you, but I'm here to see you because I just found out I'm pregnant. I'm also using this, and see what the response is. See how that clinician responds to that. What do they then offer? How are they speaking to you? You both talked a lot about being open, right?
Yes.
Open and honest and transparent. Yes, I love that, but I'm going to throw that asterisk, which is that star above that, and then very fine print at the bottom. I'm going to say, but really when you feel comfortable with this individual.
I love that.
A lot of people get burned.
Yes.
A lot of people, like if I sit here and say, walk into your clinician's office, be totally open and transparent, ideally. But what if that clinician turns around and turns that into one of the most negative experiences and betrays your trust?
Yes.
Now you could be shattered. Now you could go to the next clinician and then have that trauma sitting with you and not be open and honest. And, again, in an ideal world, I love that. I absolutely love it, and encourage it. But use your gutometer, okay? Have
Love
your
it.
gutometer tell you, hey, is this a relationship that I feel comfortable sharing this information with? Yeah.
Dr. Farzad, it's so funny you said that, and I love the little asterisk at the bottom. If only you feel comfortable, because when I was pregnant with my daughter, this was the first time I was navigating a pregnancy using substances, and it was I just knew that I wanted to quit. And so what I did when I went into my first OBGYN, I was like, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm using. And the reaction I had gotten was, it wasn't the best. It was, I really did not plan for the worst in that one. I thought it was going to be, oh, let's help you. Oh my gosh, everything like that. It was, girl.
Yeah, I know.
And it was horrible to where I did find a different OBGYN, and I didn't quite share the same thing. They had to find out. And when they did find out, they were open and they were like, well, these are certain things you need to start tearing down. I didn't know about tearing down. I thought it was you just stopped.
You just stopped.
And I didn't know. And they actually gave me some guidance, referred me to my insurance, a case manager through my insurance. They did go above and beyond, but I was scared to tell them anything due to my first experience with OBGYN, just trying to be transparent. So I love how you said you do have to, if you trust them, you do. Not everybody, somebody said, not everybody is worth hearing your story at times. You have to protect your peace.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. And, finishing off the whole advocacy piece.
Yes.
Bring it up. I need help. I want help. I won't take no. If you can't, where can I? Who can I call?
Yes.
All those kinds of things. And it's kind of every step along the way.
It is.
I want to breastfeed. right?
Yes.
I want to be with my baby. I want to feed my baby. I want to cuddle and swaddle and take care and change diapers, all those kinds of things. Because we've seen patients where they lost access to this stuff simply because they said they're using substances. No one even bothered to ask how severe, where they were,
That is so
if there
true.
really was a use disorder versus I just randomly socially use a substance, you know.
Yes.
So
That's the
advocate.
difference,
Okay, so
yeah.
from a patient side of things, advocate. Okay. And kind of wrapping up, right? Some final thoughts. What are steps that you all think people can take to get that, let's call it path to empowerment, to
I love that.
yeah, have inspire those to act, right? So that we can provide some hope, right? That resiliency can happen, that you can get help during your road to recovery, particularly when you are using substances during pregnancy.
Sam, what would you, so for in your role of peer support, when you have clients come in, what would you kind of tell them? I'm a mom, I'm pregnant, and I'm using, and I'm here for the program. What kind of things would you guys do to kind of help get that started, or how? Because I know you guys advocate, Empowered does advocate for all their clients.
I mean, I there's not really anything specific. I don't have a script for them.
Sure.
I guess I would start by asking them like, what are they here for? Like, what do you want? How do you want to do it? Do you want to do it today? Do you want to do it next week? Like, do you want my number so you can call me when you want to do it? Like, honestly, it's whatever. I meet them where they're at. If I try not to have any view of them before, like, of course I
Yes.
want them to go to rehab, and of course I want them to do it today, and of course I want
Yes.
them to want that, but that's not my place. So it's really whatever their plan is that they put together in our office. Like, I'm just there to support you, give you some encouraging words, I guess. If you've already had your baby, I'll hold your baby while you do what you need to do. I will definitely hold your baby whenever you need to do whatever
She
you need
sure
to do. Like I said, we really just meet them where they're at. And I feel like that's the best part. Like, I don't have to, like I said, I don't have to have a script to try to talk them into anything. They'll get there. They'll eventually, and they'll do it how they will do it.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So would you say for a mother who's pregnant and is suffering with substance abuse, they should first call Empowered if they're out here in Nevada?
Absolutely.
But if they're not here in Nevada, what would you recommend they do first?
Yeah. Sam, do you know of any national? If not, I mean, I oftentimes say SAMHSA, substance
Yes.
abuse.
SAMHSA.
Yeah,
So-
Google it.
Yeah,
Definitely
Google
Google
it.
it.
She said,
Google it.
Uncle Google.
It's the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Agency.
Okay.
It is all things mental health, right? And they are a fantastic resource to then find what it is that you need.
Love
in an
it.
area that you may be,
Yes.
right? Because we have resources that are available locally, state level, federal level, right,
Yes.
national level. So it's hard to say like where would you turn to and whatnot. But I would add that particularly during the time of pregnancy and even preconception, so before if you're planning or et cetera,
Yes.
right? Really, 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 because they're so heavily involved in your care, a great place to start is your primary care clinician, which I call your OB-GYN, right? Your obstetrician gynecologist that you may already have a relationship with because you're going there for well visits and gynecologic care. But if you're only seeing them during your pregnancy, bring it up. They're going to be your first sort of contact potentially into the world of healthcare. And for a lot of folks that are using substances, that is oftentimes the only touch point that they have.
That is true.
And unfortunately, oftentimes folks, because of negative experiences that they've had,
Yes.
no judgment, negative experiences they've had, they forego prenatal care. Oh, and that breaks my heart.
I did that with my third pregnancy.
Yes. Crushes my soul. Okay. They forego prenatal care, but they oftentimes, more often than not, more likely, present to a hospital for delivery.
Yes.
And so that can really be an opportunity hopefully it's
To
a positive
intervene.
one, but hopefully it's that first nugget into, oh my
Yes.
gosh, thank you for telling us, and what can we do to help? Let's get you plugged in with Empowered here in Nevada, or whoever else, depending on where you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clinicians never know that they could actually be the person to actually start somebody on their road to recovery.
Yeah.
I say this all the time in our educational settings is you can be the one. Don't assume anyone has ever
That
asked
is
this
so
person.
true.
Because we get patients and clients all the time who say, in my 20 plus years of using a substance, no one, you are the first person. And then I go, no way, there's no, how's that possible? You've had 4 children, da da da.
You'd be surprised.
All the time it happens. It's a little bit about advocacy.
Yes.
Let people know and sort of what's the best care for you and your baby, etc. But yeah, don't assume. For clinicians, don't assume that they've been asked or that they have let someone know. You could be the final stop, because once someone delivers and they go home with baby, it's possible that the next step is overdose.
No,
Yes.
you are
And that
1,000%
is
correct.
the ultimate failure on our part.
Yes,
The
it
ultimate
is.
failure on our part. So, my gosh, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about stigma. We talked about sort of how do we get folks towards opening up? What can we do from a clinician side? What can we do from a patient side?
Navigating pregnancy, if you're still using,
Yeah.
how to advocate for yourself is truly important. Speaking up.
Yeah, it is. And critical. It's a perfect. I call it the perfect. Oh no, that's too peachy. A great window of opportunity for getting on the road to recovery. Pregnancy.
Yes.
Yes.
Pregnancy.
Absolutely.
Pregnancy.
And don't wait till your eighth month either.
Don't
Yes.
wait till your 8th
Yes.
month either.
As soon
But
as
if
you
Once you
out.
find out.
But if
Yes.
you do, no judgments.
No,
No
judgments. I can help you
no.
as
But
effectively during the 8th month as I
Yes.
can.
I would just say
But
it's
yes.
harder.
It
It's
is.
harder when you're towards the end to well, in my experience with clients.
Yeah.
The more far along you are in your pregnancy, the more doors are closed because they don't want the liability of it.
That is so true.
All of that.
Yeah.
All of that.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And my thing.
Not
going-
our door. Sorry.
That
Not our
door
door.
is always open, empowered. I always love to say, my grandpa used to say this a lot, baby don't cry, baby don't get no milk. So you definitely have to advocate for yourself. You truly do.
Let's close with that.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, let's close with that. So, Sam,
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Yeah, no, thank you,
You're
guys.
truly inspiring. Thank you so much, Sam, for coming
Yeah.
onto our podcast
Thank you.
and sharing your story.
yeah, and it can be tough. And I'll tell you this: you had mentioned that you were maybe a little nervous. Mm-hmm. All right. But you are the star of the
Sure
show
is.
now,
Sure
right? You're the
is.
Thank
star
you,
of the
guys.
show now. Yeah, no, that was awesome.
Yes.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching to this
Yes.
premiere. It was our first one. Premiere
Yay,
episode.
thank you for being our first guest.
Of Empowered Voices. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Another episode is going to be dropping in 2 weeks. I think that's going to be our schedule. Every 2 weeks or so.
episode 2.
What else? Oh yeah, don't forget to rate and share with others, whoever you think would
Yes,
find
please.
this, our information, our discussion topics, anything like that helpful.
If you live in Southern Nevada or in Reno, Carson City, Churchill County, or in Lyon County in Northern Nevada, and you're pregnant or recently had a baby and using opioids or stimulants for any reason, there is non-judgmental help available to you. No referral or insurance is required. Visit empoweredmoms.org for information or to request services. Again, empoweredmoms.org. If you live outside of these areas, we really encourage you to find resources in your community.
Empowered Voices is a podcast production of the Empowered program at Roseman University College of Medicine, supported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Overdose Data to Action grant through the Southern Nevada Health District. This project has been funded by grant number NH28CE003534 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by the Southern Nevada Health District, CDC, or the U.S. government. Hosted by myself, Dr. Farzad Kamyar, and Amani Wilson. Executive producers are Dr. Andrea Peterson and Jason Roth, with production assistance by Rachel Mack. Writing assistance by Troy Stefano. Recorded at the Video Podcast Studio at Canico Media in Las Vegas, Nevada. For information about this podcast and past and future episodes, visit empoweredmoms.org.